as coming out on top, and hopefully it's something that they, can continue to build on also.
Yeah, Roy Williams is one of the best offensive coaches against coaching against his own defense, and you saw it again a little bit tonight. Not as efficient, as effective as it has been in years past, but most teams, like you said, want to stand out and shoot three-pointers. You can get the ball in the middle of the zone, and you can really break it down and get what you want from there. And you saw that tonight when the ball got into like the free throw area. Carolina was able to get good results. And I thought their ball movement, for the most part, was as good as it's been in the ACC this season. And it's something that when they go and break down the film, it'll be a positive film session for the most part on the offensive end. They still got to clean some things up, as most young teams have to. But this is a good step in the right direction. This was a quality win for Carolina, as Syracuse came in with a 7-2 record overall, 1-1 in the ACC. This is a quad one win, and we're sitting here and it's January 12th. We're talking about having to build a resume. That's where Carolina is. This was a step in the right direction. So before we get out of
things they need to clean up, I'd like to see them convert a few of those lob attempts. I think
yeah,
2 or 3 of those, and they're not quite Marcus Page to Bryce Johnson, but even if we could, convert on 1 or 2 of them, I mean, they kind of forced, the second, third one a little bit. I think they wanted it to happen also, but hopefully we can get that going and be something that they can convert on also when teams start to cheat.
Yeah, those plays are there to be made. You got to go make them, and at some point I think they will. So before we get out of here for tonight, Mark, like I said, I hadn't had you on in a while. Carolina's now played 5 ACC games overall. Just your overall thoughts from how the team has looked so far in ACC play.
Yeah, I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I mean, obviously the NC State game, played them tough, had opportunities to win. The frustrating thing is, had Carolina played the way that I think they're capable of playing, which is, the second half of Kentucky tonight, we're probably looking at being 5-0 in the ACC. Now that's easy to say, but losing those first 2 kind of gave probably everybody a little bit of flashbacks to last season. Here we go. So I think bouncing back and getting the 1-point win against Notre Dame, I think that was huge, not only for their confidence, but to show that they can win. They're here to battle. Built on it in Miami, and then it carried over to tonight. So, really, what we've said from the beginning is all you can ask for is that the team continues to grow, come together, gain experience, learn how to play together, learn how to win, and I think that we're on that trajectory. Having said that, there are still plenty of things to work on, plenty of things to improve on, and we need to continue to stack wins again, and it starts at Florida State on Saturday and goes from there. But, watching some of the other ACC teams in general, tonight before our game, Duke and Virginia Tech played. If Carolina plays well and plays the way that they are capable of, they can compete with anybody in the ACC. And if you battle and you find a way to win some of those, I mean, confidence goes a long way. You get a few bounces of the ball, and you never know what happens. So they just got to keep working and coming together, and we'll hope for the best. And like you said earlier, they're gaining very valuable experience for not only the rest of this year, but potentially building for years down the road, if indeed some of them are back and not necessarily in the NBA as some had anticipated. But we talked about that all the way back in midsummer, that this recruiting class, if the nucleus stays around, they might have the opportunity to be the next team that potentially cuts down the nets. But that's a long way from now. So.
Yeah, I think when you look back at those losses to really that NC State loss, I think what was most disappointing about that was we thought that win against Kentucky was big. Now, look, we all know Kentucky isn't the Kentucky that they're used to seeing. They just got trounced at home tonight by Alabama, for God's sakes. But for this team, that was a big win. Then you came out in a rivalry matchup in a game that you usually own and dominate, and you didn't meet their level of toughness. You didn't meet their competitive nature. And then you go to Georgia Tech, and you just simply didn't finish. You built an 8-point lead, and you thought it was going to be easy from there. And you just completely melted down. And then you were able to respond. I think it's the thing that, me and Anthony part on this all season long, is that this team is going to fight. They're going to play. They're not going to play great for 40 minutes, but they're going to play 40 minutes. They're going to give, what they think is their best. They're going to try as hard as they can. And it's going to be enough some nights. Some nights it's not going to be. Last year we questioned effort. We questioned desire. We questioned want to. I have not questioned that with this team one time this year. I think the effort is there. I think the want to is there. I think the desire is there for the most part. It's just they're really young, and it's really hard to put all those things together and get a good quality result out of it. So, played 5 games.
There is a thing such as wanting it too bad.
Yeah.
And I think last year was a byproduct of that a little bit. I mean, especially when they got on the losing streak. So, absolutely, the effort's there. The toughness, obviously Bayron Sharp kind of sets the tone and goes from there. But even Baycott, he's playing tough. I mean, you can't really look at anybody out there and say they're not playing tough or giving it their all. Certainly, we could have better shot selection, take better care of the basketball, and all that comes with experience. So when it all comes together, hopefully we're a very tough out in March like we're used to being.
A few episodes ago, Mark, I called out Roy Williams, and I pretty much, asked more out of our Hall of Fame head coach. And look, this podcast is named after him. If you know me and you know my Twitter account, I defend him. I love him. He's the reason why I love Carolina basketball. He's a role model in my life. I've read his book 100,000 times. I got a bobblehead that I used to, that I talk to at times to make myself feel better about the team when they play bad. Like he's a big fixture in my life. So it wasn't very easy for me to reflect after the Georgia Tech loss to realize they're not playing to their level that they need to, and he's a big reason why. What are your thoughts on his coaching job through this season, right, so far?
The thing that bothers me the most, by far, is this scrambled half attempt at a trap defense in the half court. I know that's a staple of Carolina, especially under Roy Williams. And I know it's worked in the years past, but that just does not seem to be effective. And, the timing of when we try it, it seems to always maybe kill a run that we have going, kill some momentum that we're building. That certainly bothers me. For the most part, the other stuff, I think that we've kind of seen the Roy Williams that we're probably used to. He's not going to bail these guys out. Typically, when he's not going to bail these guys out, that means he's not going to take a timeout when they're down 9-0 against a team that they should be beating, UNLV, for example.
Right.
He's not going to bail them out of those situations. And I think specifically with Love and RJ Davis that he's got a lot of confidence in them. And, he said the quote after, I think it was the Miami game, that he knows they're going to be good. It's just a matter of when. And I think he quoted exactly of they're going to be good. Is it just before he dies or not?
Yeah.
The fans unfortunately don't have that much patience as he does, and maybe the amount of confidence as he does. But I think we also need to remember that he's the one that recruited them. He's the one that sees them in practice every day. He's the one that truly knows what they are capable of. So I think there's no doubt that we all want more. But I think Roy obviously is still trying to, with this team. I mean, how many times do we see him plug in different starting lineups like we have this year?
Yeah.
That's not very often. I do appreciate, though, that this year he was able to kind of deviate away from the experience factor. In years past, it would have taken, if it would have even happened, it would have taken forever to get bench a struggling Garrison Brooks. Now he earned his shot back. So, I think he's changed a little bit and got some of that going. Rotation-wise, I'd like to see Walker Kessler get a little bit more of an opportunity. I think, if he can get the rhythm and the flow of things, that he's got some good things to offer. I'd like to see some more actual drawn-up plays and sets to get Kerwin Walton some open shots rather than him trying to have to create typically on his own. That's not really his forte. He's more of just a knockdown shooter once something is set up for him. Puff Johnson, another one. If he got going, could he establish something? I mean, essentially to start the season, we kind of looked at Kerwin Walton and Puff Johnson having kind of the same opportunity or the same role. Now, obviously, Kerwin has taken over, gotten some minutes, obtained a starting role. And I'm not saying that Puff Johnson should get that or deserves it. I'm just saying if he could get a few more minutes to see, what he can truly offer. So that's kind of, I guess, my recap in general of what I think is going on Roy-wise. And, as fans, it's easy for us to get frustrated and always question what's going on. But I think in the end that, we still wouldn't want anybody else at the helm other than Royce. So.
Yeah, totally agree with that. One last thing, and we'll get out of here because it is pretty late. Back in the preseason, we both had Carolina finishing in the top 3 in the ACC. Do you think that will stand tall when the season comes to an end?
I hate to not have confidence in them and to not believe in them. I'm going to stand by that, because if they continue to build the way that they have, I mean, I don't think there's an ACC team out there. Obviously, it's a gauntlet of a schedule, but I don't think there's one out there that you look at and say, we cannot compete with them. And that was the case last year with a few teams. It's kind of if we come, play our best game, and compete, we'll be in a lot of games. And if we can figure out a way to win them at the end, like we have the last 3, it'll happen. Could it easily not happen? Sure. Mm-hmm. There's certainly not a lot of margin for error, but I'm going to stand by this and say that they're going to continue to build and come together. And, Garrison Brooks and Leakey are going to step up a little bit more as the veterans on the team. Baycott's going to continue to do that. We're going to get Anthony Harris back. And, I don't want to be critical, but I don't think that Caleb Love can really play at much lower of a level than he is. I think there's only way to go up there. Mm-hmm. If we get the RJ Davis that we got tonight, if we get that on a consistent basis, I mean, there's so many different scoring options, and it's perplexing though how we still go 4 or 5 minute droughts without scoring, or the other team gets a quick 9-10-0 run. But as of now, I'm going to stick by that.
Okay. I respect that. If I had to answer that question, I would say no. But I do see where you're coming from, and there is a path to get there, because finishing third could be 11-9 in conference play. It could be 10-10. You just don't know, because there's a lot of parity in the conference this year. But through 5 games, they're 3-2. So if you do that, a couple more times, you're going to be at 12-8, and that might be good enough to get the job done. So with that,
it might be a little optimistic, but
yeah. And hey, sometimes we need some optimism, because even in the wins, I've been pretty negative because of the frustration of watching this team play has worn me down mentally and really just emotionally. As the watching experience, sometimes like the other night, I punched myself in the head. I got so mad at them. Like that's where I'm at in 2021. But so having you on is a breath of fresh air from hearing me and Anthony complain about the same things over and over again. So with that, we're going to go ahead and shut this thing down before I let you go. Talk to you about the website, HeelToughBlog.com. A lot of great content on there. We have everything post-Syracuse on there. Mark's recap. I'll have and potentially a Marlowe's musings will be on the website as well. If not, you can check out the recap from tonight's win over Syracuse. Football wise, we kind of put a wrap on the season today on the Heel Tough Blog podcast, but the Tar Heels landed a transfer running back in Ty Chandler. They had a guy elected to the College Football Pro Football Hall of Fame. Anthony Edge covered everything on the football side of things as well. And baseball season right around the corner. We'll have some light baseball coverage as well for you guys. Check all that great content on HeelToughBlog.com. And last, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the Roy's Boys podcast. You can find us on every major podcasting platform, most notably Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn. Give us a like, review me as the host, review Mark when he's on hosting as well, and of course, as Anthony, as he's the usual co-host. And lastly, we want you guys to subscribe, that we get every podcast in your podcast feed. Well, with that, we'll thank Mark for taking some time out of his night to talk North Carolina basketball. We thank you guys for listening, and as always, go Tar Heels!